I am on the coast in Florida, Carrabelle, and I found this little Carrabelle History Museum. This museum is basically about the history of Carrabelle.
This ship is the steamship Tarpon, so SS Tarpon, and it came here every Thursday from 1902 to 1937 when it sank. And what's interesting about it is Mr. Plant, the railroad industrialist who built it out, had passenger cabins built on it. So it would come with both freight and people. And it got to be, if you think about Carrabelle's on an island, we're on St. James Island, and there were no bridges until the late 1930s. So we were pretty isolated except for things that came on boats. And so they ended up, Captain Barrow came here, like I say, every Thursday. And they went from Mobile, where it was anchored, and then it went to Pensacola, Panama City, Apalachicola, and here. The day that it sank, the captain had two fatal flaws. One, he never checked the weather, and the other one was that he didn't like those newfangled gadgets like radios. And if he had a radio and called a mayday, more people could have been saved, but he didn't. So everything they had a hurricane, Category 3 hurricane. Everything that could go wrong happened to their ship. They lost all the boats with the big waves. The cargo punched holes in the hull. They were taken on water. It got in the engine room. Then the fuel source caught fire, and then the boiler blew up. Jeez. And it sank. And there were 31 crew on board, and of that 31, there were only 13 survivors. Wow. And the captain died in the accident. So the guys that were left all had on cork life jackets. They were in shark infested waters. So they were very worried about being in the water. And they were climbing up on anything they could find that was floating. And one of the men, our hero, Adley Baker, was an oiler in the engine room, and he was a young man in his 20s. He was very concerned about getting rescued because they had no way to contact anybody. And so he said, somebody's got to go swim to land and get help. And nobody else would go with him. So he said, well, I'm going. So he took a couple of apples out of a crate like one of these, and he put them in his shirt. And he starts swimming towards the land. And he perceives it's going to be 6 to 8 miles to land. And it turns out it's 25 miles.
Oh my gosh.
So he is swimming. He gets 10 miles, which I think is totally amazing. Mm-hmm. And he starts getting cramps in his arms and legs. And he begins to drown. And then he's down in the water. A pod of dolphins come. And the dolphins actually go down, get underneath him, push him to the surface, flip him over, and hold him up so his face is out of the water until he comes to. And he, I don't know how long that took, but he was fine once he got figured out, got his bearings back, as you would say. And when he got his sea legs back under him, he started swimming again. And he was doing really well, and they would periodically, the dolphins would check back with him. And he never had a problem with a shark, was fine, but the dolphins realized he was swimming into the woods, and that would add a couple more days on the discovering him. So the dolphins came and got on either side of 𝙩𝙧 and redirected where he was swimming and took him around the bend to a beach on Panama City where there were two guys, and here we are 2 days after hurricane. These two guys are out there surveying for a new road on Panama City Beach, and they see him crawl out. They grab him up, take him to the police, and then the police teletype the Coast Guard and say, Tarpon's down near the sea buoy, need latitude, longitude for rescue. And they sent a plane, they did circles from the sea buoy, found the wreckage, determined there were still survivors, sent the latitude, longitude back to the police, and they sent fishing boats out to pick up the rest. Well, in the meantime, two of the big burly roustabouts or stevedores had decided that poor little Adley probably didn't make it, and because it was 36 hours they were hanging in the water there. And they got a big piece of the boat, and together they kicked their way ashore. So they rescued themselves. Dolphins rescued Adley, and then the fishing boats went out and got the other 10 people that were out there. So all the ones that survived the original wreck of the ship ended up being protected by dolphins, and
What an amazing story.
and then made it to tell the story another day so we could learn about it. But I love that story. I just think it's so amazing.
It really is. It really is.
And what is your name?
My name's Tamara.
Tamara? Tamara, thank you for telling us this story.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was great.
This is a display of the shipwrecks. The Priscilla.
There's a song that itself.
I'll teach you.
The earliest documented shipwreck on Dog Island was the French Merchant in 1766. This tells the legend of 𝙬𝙧𝙬𝙧 State Forest. I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but y'all Google and read how it became known as 𝙬𝙧𝙬. So this is a display of Carrabelle Post Office. This is the first postmistress in 1878. Cecilia, 1950.
I was looking out the door, always looking round for more. Didn't know it, had everything I needed. Tried to give me all the clues, hoping I would see the truth. Didn't know it, didn't know till we parted. Couldn't see the signs until you had enough and said goodbye. Wish I could go back to where we started. Wish that I could find a way to say sorry that I let you go, sorry that I got so cold. Wish I could go back to what we were. Know that I was stupid, I was but a fool then. Know that I was stupid, blew it, loosen what we were. Started out the perfect way, stayed in bed for rainy days. Didn't know it, had everything I needed. And when I think of all the times I got it wrong and let you down, didn't know it, but what we had was perfect.